Well, thanks y'all for joining the January Electrify the South virtual collaborative. We're really excited for the conversation today and glad all of you could join us this morning. Just as a reminder, if this is your first time joining us for an Electrify the South collaborative event, Electrify the South, or ETS, is a collaborative between the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy and SSDN, the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network, aiming to create a community of learning for local governments around the region around transportation electrification and associated funding resources and partnerships to help you all meet your local transportation electrification and fleet electrification goals. The goal of the collaborative, in sort of a second goal of our work here, is to build that local government network and capacity. So those of you who participate in SSDN, we do this around a variety of issues, and we're really glad to partner with SACE on this specific issue of transportation electrification. And I think all of that is covered in brief on the next slide. So if you want access to the website, you can access it directly through the link in these slides, which I think Chris asked in the chat if these will be shared afterwards. I believe they will. So you'll have access to all the links and resources within this slide deck. Next slide. So just a brief overview of today's agenda. We're starting a couple minutes late, but we'll still have a really great program for you all today. After my welcoming and intro remarks, we're going to turn things over to Dory, who will go over the resources and the website that are available to you as participants of the Electrify the South Collaborative. And then we'll switch over and learn about the fourth Charge at Home program, followed by a brief Q&A. So we'll have time, a couple of junctures throughout this meeting for questions for the presenters. And then we'll hear from folks from Redwood Materials about battery recycling, followed by another Q&A. And then we'll wrap up with some collaborative updates, and we'll talk about upcoming meetings at the very end of the call. Next slide. And just in case that you have to hop off early or you want to know up top what we're up to after this meeting, we have one more virtual meeting for this program year on March 12th. So you'll receive more details about that following this call. And we have two upcoming in-person meetings. So if you are a local government staff member from Florida, hopefully you've already signed up and you're excited to join us next week in Jacksonville. But we'll be meeting in person as the Electrify the South Collaborative in Jacksonville, Florida on Wednesday, February 4th. And then for those of you who are in North Carolina, we'll be having a meeting in person on March 24th in Charlotte. If you would like more information about either of those events, please just reach out to us here, myself or Dory, and we can get you information that you might need. Next slide. All right, Dory, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Caitlin. And I just also wanted to note, I know we, at one point when we sent out the reminder, had Rick Longbert with Raleigh, who was going to be talking about their tool for infrastructure. And unfortunately, because of the weather, he got pulled to support his city and couldn't be with us today. So I just wanted to note that. So in terms of resources, we want to make sure that if you're new, or as a reminder, if you haven't joined us in a while, we have all of the resources from previous meetings on our website. So it's electrifythesouth.org, ETS Collaborative. There are two separate tabs. So one has all of the events that we've hosted, the virtual and in-person events, with the resources that pertain to that meeting linked directly to them. And then we also have a resources tab that just has a list of the resources. In addition, we have, when folks join, we have a directory. So as new members participate, we add your name and your email address to the directory, and that will be sent out after today's meeting. And we encourage you, that's my watch talking to me. We encourage you guys to use that directory to connect with your peers if you have questions. It's a great way to find everyone who's participating in the collaborative. We have over 90 local governments that are participating, so you can see who is on the website as well. In addition, we have a resources document that have all of the materials that we've collected and discussed as a collaborative. And then we also have a utility programs document. That's a listing of all of the utility programs that are being offered, and that is arranged by state. So you can click on your state at the bottom tabs and find utility programs that you may not know are being offered. So with that, I am really, really excited to welcome two of our guests today from Fourth Mobility. So they're coming to us from Portland, so it's very early for them, and we appreciate them making the time to join us and to talk about Fourth's at home program, which helps to increase charging infrastructure for a really critically needed segment of the population, and those are EV drivers that are living in multifamily housing. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Anna and to Whit to share their screen and tell us all about the fourth program. Thank you guys so much for being here this morning.
Of course, thank you so much for having us. I'm going to make sure Whit has joined. Yes. Amazing. And then Whit, do you mind sharing your screen for us?
Yes. Give me a second. My computer was rather unhappy last night and getting the
Awesome.
slideshow up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Whit. My name is Anna Guida. I'm a program manager here at Fourth on the Access to Charging team. And Whit Jamison is our senior specialist here at Fourth, focused on EV charging, specifically at multifamily housing over the last several years. And together we've been working on the Charge at Home program by Fourth, which was initially started as a 2-year DOE, Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Energy funded project to create a resource for multifamily decision makers about EV charging. So a previous iteration of this project that Whit was involved with actually with the Center for Sustainable Energy was called VCI MUD and was a similar kind of vibe, I guess, but the audience was more multifamily residents. And from the lessons learned from that program, when this new grant opportunity came out, DOE messaged it towards decision makers. So that is a quick background on Charge at Home. The way that this presentation is going to work is we're going to move more into the actual technical information about multifamily EV charging and important things to consider at multifamily properties. And then we'll move into talking more about Charge at Home and the resources that we have on our website. We'll be dropping links throughout. Additionally, Dory requested that we send out these slides. So we're going to make sure all the links we share and any questions that are included, we're going to try and integrate those into a version of these slides before we send them out to you. If there's anything that's not on the slideshow, feel free to ask us questions. You can connect with Whit and I at any point after this presentation. This is kind of starting a conversation. But again, we're with Fourth. This is a free resource, and we're excited to be here with you today. So next slide, Whit. So there we go. Charge at Home provides electric vehicle charging guidance, tools, and support to multifamily decision makers. That is our URL, which I can drop in the slide. But other than that, I'll hand it off to Whit to get started. And thanks again for having us.
So, all right. So, okay, there we go. We want to start with some level setting with National Multifamily Housing Council's resident preference survey. Unfortunately, it's from 2024, but they're aiming to do another one later this year. Some of the things we wanted to highlight are that the interest of renters is increasing, and that's sort of the broadest thing, and it's not just in the renters. You also see it with the multifamily owners, operators, and developers too. More and more of the industry is both interested and becoming very much more involved in EV charging, to the point where there's a bunch of people within the industry that are already extremely versed in EV charging. The variation between different ways of doing it, we'll get into that a little bit later in the more technical part. some things I wanted to point out, because there's not a lot of good data on EV charging at apartments specifically, and I want to take a second, and maybe this may even deserve the full page, but when we say multifamily, we usually mean both condos and apartments, but the multifamily industry, or multifamily housing industry, actually doesn't include condos in that at all. That's sort of a different different part of the industry. There's some overlap in the property managers, property management companies, but they actually sort of separate the industries entirely. And I think in some ways, the transportation electrification industry should get used to that, because there's significant differences between condos and apartments, which we all know. Two points I want to emphasize are 3 and 4. That just 25% of EV owning renters are satisfied with their on-site charging setup, and one out of 3 EV owning renters say they have no charging on site, which indicates that basically if you have an EV and you're a renter and you're living in a multifamily housing property, you're going to be trying to move to a place that has EV charging. These 2 points are interesting, especially in that, because it's saying that 2 out of 3 EV owning renters say they do have charging on site, but we know that the rates of EV chargers at apartments especially is fairly low in most places, which means 2 out of 3 are saying that they have moved to a place that does have EV charging. I think this year I'm going to try to get some of the disaggregated data, and then hopefully we'll get some updated data by the end of the year. NMHC switching timelines a little bit on their survey. So these are some really interesting points, and I'm really glad that we're going to continue to get some of that data. There's a link to the survey, or a place to where you can get more information, and eventually get to the survey in this link down here. Or Anna, actually, if you want to throw that in the chat, go for it.
Done. It's in there.
Oh, perfect. Sorry. All right. Next slide. So why do we care so much about EV charging at multifamily properties? For cities, utilities, transportation electrification industry, the focuses are very different than for the multifamily property owners and operators, developers. And I think it's important to emphasize those differences, to sort of come to agreement and alignment on what both sides of the equations, the incentive providers and the sort of environmental folks, so that there is alignment on the actual incentive creation, and how do we get from here to a world where there's a lot more EV charging at multifamily properties. So these are some of the focuses. I do a double asterisk on the help renters reduce their transportation costs, because that is not guaranteed. That is very much not guaranteed, as much as we've emphasized it over the last 5 to 10 years. If you don't have access to affordable EV charging, it's not going to be as much of a fuel savings. And one of the coolest things about one of the web tools that we've built as part of our website is that you can really dig into the cost benefit analysis for property owners, managers, versus the renters and the residents. It's sort of buried, but it's also, an awesome thing that's cool about that tool. Something that also is important is, once one person realizes that, once one person has an EV at a property that has EV charging, more and more people realize that they can do it too. It's the build it and they will come, and it's been seen not just in the the Class A properties, it's also in the Class B properties, and I've even heard some stories around Class C pretty quickly too. Like there was one Class C property owner that installed chargers with Pangea charging. If y'all know Anup, out of Houston, he does some awesome awesome work. And you know, they installed a charger thinking they weren't going to get a tenant with a EV for probably like a year, and it happened like less than 6 months. And the owner was like, "Whoa, that really surprised me." Uh, Again, emphasizing the end goals. That double asterisk on the shift load, primarily if it's managed, or time of use rates are strongly incentivizing a load shift. And these key stats down at the bottom are something that frames this whole discussion. There's a lot of people that live in multifamily properties, and if we do not provide them access to home charging, it's a pretty significant barrier, not just on the ease of access, but also on the cost. Public charging is typically more expensive, and not everybody has access to either free charging or workplace charging that is either subsidized or free. And the vast majority of people have at least one vehicle, and there's even a significant portion that have two and more. All right. On the apartment managers, owners, and developers side, and I'm sort of excluding the condo side, but I mentioned it in here as well. The keys are to attract and retain EV driving tenants who typically are wealthier or have higher incomes. I think that will change over the coming years as EVs become significantly more affordable. I track some of the local market in Portland, and there's a specific dealership that only sells used EVs, and that's sort of my place to go to find out, where is the market heading? What sort of vehicles are coming down on price, and how fast are they coming down? And it's pretty impressive this year, actually. We've got a lot of off lease vehicles coming onto the market, and you're going to see that pretty much all over the nation, not just the West Coast. So I'm excited to see prices come down in other areas, and Southeast will be very interesting to watch. I know Florida is actually a very large market for EVs, and I imagine that will spread across Southeast if it hasn't already. Differentiation between different properties with similar competitors. This is the biggest one. I think that's, I've been looking around for apartments recently, and the property managers, either they already have chargers, or they're like, yes, we need to install chargers in the next couple of months, because there are people that we have talked to, potential residents, that they're just, they're saying, oh, you don't have EV chargers. Well, this was fun, but it's not going to happen. And the property managers are getting the picture. And the last one is the double asterisk on the demonstrated commitment to sustainability. Some property owners don't particularly care about that. Others do. Really depends on how they're marketing their brand. And that's, just company policies. I added this detail down here. Again, apologies for the words. There's so many words, but we wanted to make sure that these slides were a good reference guide as well, not just something that I can yap about. This is the bottom line. And if the bottom line doesn't allow for property owners and managers to either pay back the debt that they've taken out to afford the property, or meet their net operating income goals, they're going to be pretty hesitant to install more chargers. The highest value one that is also fairly tricky to track without really detailed data that typically only the larger owners, managers, and developers can fully access is the attracting those higher income, wealthier tenants, and then reducing turnover, which is hard to track, because what you're really saying is, would they have left earlier? And that's tricky unless you do really granular surveys, and most companies are not doing those surveys. That's the highest driver of value right there, because parking fees are almost always seen, especially in assigned parking spaces where you're getting a dedicated EV charger. That is a very key net operating income driver, and that's typically what's actually covering the costs of the EV charging operating costs, as well as usually the capital expense costs as well. I want to just double check. We have till 7, 35, 7:40 to do presentation. Is that correct? And then questions?
I have you until 10:30 and then 10:30 to
Perfect.
10:45 Q&A.
Okay, perfect. I will move quickly. Or try to. And the last two are important, but they're not key drivers for NOI. Sometimes the marked up electricity can be, but that gets into incentivizing residents to go off-site for charging needs if it's too high. And most property owners and managers aren't super well versed with that, so it's best to not mark up those electricity prices too much, and then increase property values. And that's particularly important for condos. But less of a key driver for apartments usually. All right. These I'm going to dive into some of the details. I'm going to presume or most people know a good little bit about EV charging. So I'm not going to take a lot of time on this. This is sort of the synopsis page of level setting right now. I'm leaving off megawatt charging standard for probably obvious reasons. There's a lot of details there, and it's an interesting realm. We're mostly talking about the level 2 realm, but occasionally the level 1 really is a quality solution for multifamily properties. If you have limited space and significantly limited capital expenses. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Peninsula Clean Energy over in California, but they're one of the only utilities that is offering incentives to provide level 1 chargers. They're typically doing it through a company called Go Power EV, which technically isn't just level 1 chargers, but it's also a level 2. And if you want to learn more about them, I do highly recommend checking out their product. It's a power sharing setup where both parking spaces can have access to a level 1 charger, or one of them can have access to a level 2 30 amp charger. But then that cuts off the power for both of the level 1 outlets. So again, mostly working in that level 2 realm. I'm going to go through this faster than I originally thought, but multifamily charging configurations, there's two. There's two options. Theoretically, there's some other ones, but they're not critically important for this. First come, first serve chargers and communal, where people are usually parking elsewhere and then driving over to charge and then moving their car afterwards. And this can really work well if either there's not a lot of parking spaces, not a lot of EVs yet, or there's just a lot of parking spaces. Like that's straight up, that's your solution. Reservation systems can improve user experience. And because you're just using a few chargers, you're serving a lot of people so long as nobody needs to charge every day or very, very regularly. Dedicated chargers for assigned or deeded spaces. This means really just the chargers is for that parking space and whoever has access to it. This is this is providing a guarantee, a reliable access to charging always. And usually the resident is going to pay more for that. Something that has sort of come up in the last couple of years is that the assigned and dedicated route is typically better for demand response programs because cars are more reliably plugged in. So I do foresee that to be part of a solution once AC V2G comes online in the next couple of years. And that's an interesting space that I'm really excited to see. Last things. It's typically cheaper to install communal chargers because it's fewer chargers, fewer circuits, and more expensive for dedicated, even if you power share because it's just so many more circuits. EV readiness is an important key term. My guess is y'all have heard of it, at least probably all know what this is and can describe it better than I can. We're going to start with EV capable. This is typically a panel, conduit, and that it might have a junction box at the end, usually does. Theoretically, it could get really close to the EV, but no wiring, no breaker in the panel. But there is also service capacity and service capacity at that panel. EV Ready is a wire breaker installed with an outlet at the end, and EV Ready sometimes in some places can end with a junction box. Anna, you wanted to mention something?
Yes, Whit, I apologize for jumping in. We were requested to move to talk about the program a little bit more. Yes, if that's totally cool. But
Understood.
yes, Whit, thank you
Cool.
so much. This is a lot of really great in-depth information, and um, please, when we send the slides, please go through these slides and review them and let us know if you have any questions. But we're going to move into the charge at home slides. We have some great lessons learned. We encourage you to check these out. Okay, so here we go. Thank you, Whit. All this material and more is on our website, but overall, Charge at Home, we provide this free EV charging guidance. Some of the key resources that we have are market segmented multifamily EV charging installation toolkits, which Whit created with support from some of our great national partners. They're broken down by market segment for new and existing buildings, and there are 7 toolkits, and they are listed on our website. We can drop those links into the slides. We also have the project builder tool, which I dropped a link for in the slide, which Whit referenced. Really great to show ROI, different incentives in your area, and you can basically input lots of different unique features about your apartment, and it will generate a unique response, which is really, really great for making that business case. We have educational one-pagers. I believe we've dropped a few in the chat. We have a great library of case studies, which really break down the benefit of incentives for some of those and how those have played into EV charging projects. We encourage you to check out those, which I have. Maybe Whit can drop that link for us in the chat. We'll be generating more case studies over the next couple of months as well. We have glossary of terms, communication templates, resident empowerment resources, and we have free EV charging consultations. So if you are aware of multifamily folks who are like, okay, cool, sounds interesting, we don't know where to start, send them to us. The consultation program is awesome. We've had really, really, really great feedback. And again, it's free right now with our funding. Here's the link. So we really encourage you to push people in this direction who have interests but aren't exactly sure where to start, right? Okay, here's the consultation page and how it looks. It's right there linked on the top bar of our website, Charge at Home, and it is also in the chat right now. Next slide, please, Whit. Also, we have a roadmap conference coming up, which we talk a ton about electric transportation as a whole. Lots of different players there. I think it would be a really great resource to check out where we're taking calls for proposals right now. So you can learn more at roadmapforth.org. I also do want to talk about just real quickly before we get into some questions. We do have some great resources that I think would be interesting to this group if you're interested in how to kind of connect with multifamily decision makers, what some of their thought process is about decisions at multifamily housing. We have a really great library of recorded webinars that we did over the course of 2025. One of those webinars is we had folks from Greystar, Jamestown, and JVM Realty, all who have they all have gone through EV charging at their properties and really have made that a key part of their business model. And so here's the link to that webinar. I really encourage you to check it out. They're about an hour long. It's listed on that page I just dropped, but some really great passive learning there. And then additionally, we have a webinar coming up by Forth, which is our actual company that we're at, that is about technical assistance and in incentive programming, which is super, super key to get people interested in installing EV charging. So there you go right there in the chat. Okay, we can move into some Q&A now, if that's cool with everybody. Sorry to rush through. But yeah, again, we'll provide this webinar with more of the links we dropped in the chat as well.
Thank you, Whit and Anna. I think what's probably most interesting to the audience is how local governments can help developers succeed in providing charging and multifamily housing. So let's open up those kind of questions from the audience. I did see one from Elaine in the chat. If we put this information out to our residents in our spring magazine, will the Charge at Home program still be happening?
Yes, that is a great question. So our funding for the build out of this website ended in 2025, but Forth is carrying this through.
That is fantastic news because I know that there's been a lot of programs that unfortunately, like the funding has kind of ended and then support ends. So that's great to hear. if you guys if you have a question, please feel free to come off mute and ask it yourself or put it in the chat and we can get it answered for you.
And if you can't, oh, sorry. Yes, what?
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you can't think of your question right now, our emails are right here. Reach out to us at any point. I think we have a question here from Chris. Have you seen ways this could develop resilience for power outages? I'm gonna let Whit take that one.
Yeah, so the multifamily side is a little bit trickier than the single family. I think the single family side has sort of been proven out in a lot of places already. The number of vehicles that actually can do power to load is growing pretty significantly with, I think, Hyundai, Chevy, Silverado, Ford, and Rivian all being able to send power out. And I think Tesla's either working on it or can do already. The amount of power those vehicles can output is differs, but they're all pretty significant. So unless you're trying to run like, I don't know, a pool pump and electric heat pump or electric furnace or something like that, you're going to be probably pretty fine. For multifamily, it's trickier because you're looking at needing to integrate sort of a battery backup system usually, or hooking in all of the different electrical to the main panel to send out panel, or wiring just the critical loads. So theoretically you could, but I haven't seen any pilot programs on that yet. I kind of hope there are, and there might be out there in other countries. In fact, actually, that's where I would start with. And then that's more on the V2G side. But I think there is interest in exploring that. I just haven't seen utilities yet pull together a pilot like that. But I kind of expect to see that in the next couple of years. It's just finding a way to meet all of the needs while installing the equipment during development rather than trying to retrofit, because that's going to add on costs. And utilities, you got to put together a good plan to use ratepayer funds or clean fuels funds if they have those. Maybe California, and if somebody has heard of a utility setting up some sort of pilot like that, let me know, because I would love to be wrong about that. It's just I haven't heard of it yet. All right. Polishade? I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name.
Polishade. No worries.
Polishade.
Yeah. I had a question regarding condos specifically, and whether or not you all have identified case studies for condos, specifically condos that have more unassigned parking that's in kind of a more open, more flat surfaces. And then, are there potential models for revenue sharing with condos and some of the service providers that you've seen emerged as well? And I know condos can get so tricky in terms of like HOAs and other regulations, but I'm just kind of curious of what work has been done in that area.
Yeah. So I'll start with your first question. I'm not sure if we have a case study on a surface parking lot condo yet, but that's where I would start. We do have case studies on condos, and there are a lot of condos that have installed chargers. When it comes to charging as a service, where you're looking at not just purchasing the chargers and the condo association owning the chargers, typically you can set up a revenue sharing agreement. Just depends on the company. That is one of those areas where if you know of a condo association that's looking to do that, definitely look to get multiple bids from different companies. Make sure that they offer the products that your association needs. Definitely create sort of a key objectives. What does this charging system need to provide? Typically in those situations, it's always going to be a communal charging configuration rather than a dedicated one because of the unassigned parking setup. But uh, there's a lot of companies that now offer that charging as a service business model. And they'll likely set the prices. That's one of the big asterisks is with charging as a service. Not always. They can go with a sort of different business model, but then it's less likely to have a revenue share and more of a like the condo association would have the prices set to a point where all of their operating costs are typically covered. The charging station company would set some sort of markup, usually 5 to 10 cents, maybe more, and then the remainder of the money would go to back to the condo association. So very much a revenue sharing agreement, sort of, but it might not look like that in you might not use those words in that situation. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. And I was just thinking about kind of some of the different types of case making for condos owners to kind of push their associations to consider adding EV chargers. So thank you.
Yeah. Something about condos that it's important to note is usually because of the politics of board association votes, you typically want to go with some sort of small amount of chargers early on, so that there's a chance that more owners will buy EVs, people will move in that have EVs. And typically you're not going to be able to do big upgrades or try for
How are you?
sorry. You won't be able to set up a deeded assigned charging setup until you have a lot more EV charging owning unit owners. All right. Any other questions? And I guess I didn't answer your original question, Dory, around how cities can really influence charging. There's a few ways. I typically the levers that cities have are often less potent, less impactful than utility incentive funds. Utility incentives are pretty significant, or state incentives. One way is ordinances. I don't necessarily think I think you mentioned previously that we're looking for ways that aren't ordinances, especially in Florida. Some of the levers that I've seen are either just like developer like incentives, like FAR bonuses or other sort of typical green building bonuses that cities can add to allow for greater density that may or may not have a big impact. A couple other ways is just simply streamlining permitting. There's a couple groups that have really focused on the single family side, but the multifamily side is a little different. Pushing or allowing inspectors to sort of what's the word? Put those inspections first, or prioritize those, or prioritize streamlining permitting. Again, it's apologies. We got January brain on top of early morning brain, so the wheels are spinning. There's some good ways of streamlining permitting, and that I'd say is a pretty impactful one to ensure that is not a barrier. But beyond that, there are always straight up incentives. People like money, but that is typically pretty tricky for cities to accomplish.
Well, thank you, Whit. Thank you, Anna, so much for joining us today and sharing about the at-home program, charge at home program, rather. I would really encourage local governments to start those relationships with developers if they have not already, and use some of the resources that have been offered today to help with those communications, and then also to make sure that you're communicating out to communities at large about some of the resources that developers can tap into to help transition, because renters and multi-family dwellers, it's a really important segment that can't be overlooked if we're going to make this transition work for everybody, especially equitably. So thank you guys so much. And I'm going to hand it over to Stan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Forth. Appreciate that. And good morning, everybody. Stan Cross, I'm Electric Transportation Director at the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, and honored again to be with you all for another Electrify the South collaborative webinar. We're going to shift gears from talking about how to get charging infrastructure at multifamily dwellings to how to ensure a circular economy around the batteries that are powering this electric transportation future. And for that, we're welcoming our friends from Redwood Materials. Ashley Seward and Gabby Olson are going to be telling us about what Redwood Materials is up to and how they're really on the forefront of not only battery recycling, but also, repurposing those recycled materials into new batteries for a whole host of applications, including transportation. So before I turn it over to Ashley and Gabby, let me just introduce them both to you so you have a kind of sense of who you're going to be hearing from. So Ashley Seward is the Manager of State Policy and Government Relations at Redwood Materials. Prior to joining Redwood, Ashley led advocacy for the National Trade Association People for Bikes, where she promoted policies on behalf of the bicycle industry, including battery stewardship. Now she leads advocacy efforts nationwide on battery management policies that promote market-driven solutions, ensure responsible end-of-life management, and support repurposing to maximize the value of recovered materials. Joining Ashley is Gabby Olson, who has more than a decade in the metals recycling and commodities space. She began her recycling career at a small vehicle demolition and dismantling organization after transitioning from cosmetic retail management. While her path to recycling is unconventional, Gabby quickly thrived in an industry that historically has few female leaders. Gabby joined Redwood Materials in 2023 and is responsible for shaping the recycling and metal buying strategy in North America and providing operational guidance to support customer excellence. So we're really excited to have Ashley and Gabby here because we recognize that, a significant number of collaborative participants have been sort of grappling with questions from the community and from decision makers about the battery side of electric transportation, about some of the concerns about environmental degradation and social justice issues around batteries, and also about what to do with batteries when EVs are no longer able to use them and what's going to happen with them. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there on all sides of the batteries, and Redwood Materials is definitely demonstrating that there's a lot of opportunity to use electric transportation as a way to create a circular economy where the mining that we do today is able to be used and reused again and really reduce the impact over time, unlike what we can do with internal combustion engines that have to mine and burn and mine again. So with that, Ashley and Gabby, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Stan, and everyone for having us. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay, you can't see my speaker notes, right? We're all good?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Looks
good.
Well, thanks again for having us. I'm Ashley, along with my colleague Gabby here on the line. We were looking forward to this call, so thanks for taking the time. We got a short deck we're gonna run through here, but we're most looking forward to questions and answering anything that we can at the end here. So totally cool if this is conversational, whatever works for you all, but looking forward to hearing from you as well. Um, so we like to kick off these presentations and the introduction of Redwood to folks, usually by this slide. So this is kind of a bird's eye view of the battery supply chain as it stands today globally. It's over 50,000 miles to create a battery. And as you can imagine, this has some negative aspects to it. First being that it can lead to higher costs to create a battery. It can have more risk and safety implications, and it of course can have more emissions from the creation and transportation of these batteries. So one of our core goals at Redwood is to remove as many lines from this map as possible. We call this the spaghetti bowl of the battery supply chain, and our goal is to remove as many of these spaghetti noodles as possible and onshore the battery supply chain here domestically, so we can, produce batteries cheaper. Have less emissions from the production of those batteries and the transportation of those batteries, but benefit from the long list of co-benefits and get to enjoy the national security benefits and the energy benefits from these batteries to power our everyday lives. So just wanted to give you an overview there. Secondly, here, if you walked away from this presentation today and you're speaking with a colleague later and you're like, wow, I learned so much about Redwood Energy and Redwood Materials. They're so awesome. This is how you would describe our company in one slide. These are our two main components. So our first component of our company is critical materials and the recycling of batteries. Of course, we started off as a battery recycling company. Our CEO is JB Straubel. He spent many years at Tesla and producing EV cars. He then, saw a very strategic opportunity of ways that we can harness the resources from all those vehicles and use the batteries and recycle them to make new batteries and onshore this battery supply chain. So we take these end-of-life batteries of all formats and sizes, and turn them into critical materials like nickel, cobalt, copper, lithium, and cathode active material. And then in addition to our recycling operations, we have a new arm of our company that we're very excited about called Redwood Energy. And this is where we are taking end-of-life EV batteries and repurposing them for energy storage. And we'll get in a little bit more into that, but that's a very new, exciting arm of the company. Here's just another view to see how our recycling business and our repurposing business all work together in this larger ecosystem. And how we manage batteries end to end. So we collect all batteries, and like I said, we work across all formats. So whether it's the battery in your electric toothbrush, to the battery that's powering your electric bicycle, to an EV battery or decommissioning of a large energy storage system, we assist with that. So we have a very robust collection program, logistics network that we work in to collect these batteries. And then, of course, we recycle and refine them to create those critical materials that I was referencing before. And one of those refining operations includes cathode active material. So I won't get too much into the nerdy battery aspect of cathode active material, but just know that this is a significant and important thing in the battery world because it is the most expensive and important component to create a new battery. So if you're looking at the cake that is creating a battery, cathode active material is a very important ingredient. So therefore the creation of that from recycled materials can help decrease the cost of batteries in the long term. So you can see this process here: collection, recycling, refining, manufacturing to the outputs of metal intermediates, cathode active material, and then of course our energy storage line. And Gabby, if you want to sprinkle anything here, let me know.
Yeah, just to go back to cathode active material, that's just a blend of lithium, cobalt, and nickel that goes onto the aluminum foil to go back into a battery. So when we talk about cathode active material, I just want to link that previous conversation on the lithium, cobalt, and nickel units. That's why there's so much discussion around critical minerals. How do we keep them? How do we refine them? the refining aspect at Redwood is truly the most special thing we do because that's the most expensive part. And what very few people are able to do is extract lithium and then refine lithium back into, a sulfate that can go into a product, and then refine the nickel and cobalt to make cathode active material. Because you have to separate those units and then bring them back together. And so that refining process is really one of the biggest gaps we have in North America. So I don't want to skip over that so much because we talk a lot about keeping critical minerals and closing supply chain loops, but without refining, we will not meet that goal. So just want to plug that. We talk a lot about recycling, a lot about reuse, but I see a huge gap in refining. And I think as many people as understand that and help support that critical mission, then we can really close the loop in North America.
Yeah. Redwood's a very vertically integrated company. We've got a lot of cool work that we're doing. So Redwood recycles 20 gigawatt hours of lithium ion batteries annually. This is significant because we are the largest lithium ion battery recycler in North America. We have about 70% market share. And 20 gigawatt hours, what does that mean? It's equivalent to about 250,000 electric vehicles or 1.6 billion cell phones. So it's a significant number. Another aspect of our company that we're proud of is our sustainability process. So we partnered with Stanford University a few years ago to do a life cycle analysis of our process. And it was found that our recycling and refining work uses about 80% less energy, 80% less water, and delivers roughly 70% lower CO2 compared to traditional processes. So we're very proud that, not only are we using recycled materials to support the creation of a domestic battery supply chain, expanding the life of batteries through repurposed avenues for energy storage systems, but we also do all of this in an incredibly sustainable way. Here's just kind of a fun shot of our campus in Reno, Tahoe, Nevada area. We also have a sister facility in South Carolina that is growing, but here just so you can see where we're doing all of this work. Of course, we collect batteries all across the country. We'll get into energy storage here in a second, and we're doing that in different places across the country. But here's where our recycling and refining operations happen. So you can see we have that peninsula there is a big lot of batteries. There's some offices, and you can see our solar array for our energy storage system site that we have on site, and then some of our recycling and refining buildings behind there. So it's a very beautiful area out there if you're ever able to come visit us. One of the other reasons why we are North America's largest battery recycler and we're able to collect so many batteries is because of the diversity of partnerships that we have with folks all across the board. We have partnerships with almost every major OEM to be an end-of-life management solution for their batteries. But we also partner with consumer electronics, e-mobility, those e-bike batteries I was talking about, cell manufacturers, and of course we help with decommissioning of energy storage systems as well. So just so you can see our partnerships here and the work that we do across the board. Oh yeah, Gabby.
I do want to say something about that last slide really quick. This is really important because I think there's a lot of discussion about what's happening to batteries. Nobody's recycling them. Nobody cares about them. I want to say we work with thousands of companies. These are just our named partners who are really, really proactive in finding solutions and managing their own recycling as much as they can, and offering, take back programs and aggregation and like Volvo asking Redwood to put bins to recycle devices and whatnot. We also have a national program with VW where we pick up batteries at 56 dealerships across North America. So I want to really emphasize that as much as, these companies are making batteries and battery products and putting them out to the world, they're also very conscious about having programs to take those batteries back where needed and recycle them. And so it's important that we tell that part of the story too.
Yeah. And in segue to that, Gabby, we wanted to take a moment to talk about just how we do end-to-end EV battery management from our packaging and logistics. Batteries have value. I think that's a second thing, if you were to take away from this presentation, is just to remember that batteries have value, and that's why companies like Redwood exist. Because we want to collect batteries so we can harness that value and make sure we can all benefit from the recycling and reuse of these batteries. So these are not just end of life waste products. These are valuable things we want to keep in rotation and collect. Gabby, is there anything you want to say on our services we provide for EV battery management?
I said a little bit on the other slide, but if you have a battery, we have lots of packaging solutions, mostly based around DDR, which are damaged defective batteries that people need to special crate to get to us. We cover logistics in the lower 48, LTL or FTL. So you can have one battery, you can have truckloads of batteries, and we can manage that. We also, on EV packs, currently have a second life state of health testing and deployment into microgrids, which you'll see a little bit more about that later. And then you saw the recycling and refining that we do if it's a truly end-of-life battery. So I think it's important that that it's understood that there are resources out in the world, and our teams are actively trying to help all segments that have batteries that need to be recycled.
And speaking of the energy storage, to Gabby's point just a moment ago, and to my early reference, Redwood Materials, as a reminder, we're focused on recycling and we're focused on energy. So the newest arm of our company is Redwood Energy. We launched this June, July last year. And the idea is pretty straightforward. We are repurposing all the EV batteries, or the qualifying EV batteries, to use for energy storage. And this was really important for us because, one, we wanted to expand the life of these batteries, but we wanted to do so because the batteries that were coming into our facilities, we were finding that the majority of them still had a significant amount of life left in them, even after being used in a car. So instead of prematurely recycling, we want to make sure we're getting as much value out of those batteries and using them in a time when we all need more energy to power our everyday lives. So that is why Redwood Energy came to be. These pictures that I'm showing you now, this is our first Redwood Energy project. This picture here, this is at our Nevada campus, and it is the largest microgrid in North America and the largest second life battery deployment in the world. It's 63 megawatt hours. It's about 800 batteries, I think, they're on site, and it's across 2 acres with that solar array, or 22 acres with the solar array. And we did this in partnership with Crusoe to power an AI data center there on site. So this is just one example of us getting started. We have a lot of other exciting projects in the pipeline and a lot of batteries to deploy to use strategically for all of our energy needs. And we're very excited about this and the future for Redwood Energy. One other thing, not to get too technical or nerdy in battery land here, but these are all used EV batteries. So they come from all different walks of life, whether it's the Ford EV battery or a VW EV battery. One thing that makes our system so unique and why we are successful in this deployment is because we created what we call the pack manager. And this is essentially is just our secret sauce that allows for these different batteries to communicate to one another and act as one energy storage system. So that is what allows for the system to be modular and for us to scale to whichever size is needed. So different chemistries, capacities, and voltages all working together in one system. And last slide here, just to put a bow on Redwood Energy. There are a number of co-benefits that come with using repurposed batteries for energy storage systems. These are cheaper to deploy. We can deploy them faster, again, because they have that modular component. And in many ways, they're safer as well. So we are very excited about the future prospects of using repurposed batteries for our energy needs. And me as a policy person, is looking to help policymakers, energy officials, utility companies figure out how they can leverage repurposed batteries as part of their energy portfolio. So I think we're getting close at time. Do we still have time for questions?
Oh, we absolutely do. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ashley. Gabby, did
And
you want to say one more thing, Ashley?
yes, one more slide. I was totally skipping it.
Go ahead.
Gabby, did you want to cover decommissioning?
Yeah, this is a lot on the slide, but essentially, the energy storage systems are coming to end of life. So we've deployed in the last 2 years programs to come out, delink, decommission, pull modules, package, and recycle and or reuse, depending on the state of health of these modules. So it's a big task. There are hundreds of thousands of these modules across the United States. As many people know, BESS is the largest growing segment in batteries. So it's important that we are ahead of the game, providing solutions as things happen, whether it's a thermal event, whether it's just end of life. A lot of these batteries, some of them were under capacity, so now they're being pulled and replaced with better batteries, is most of what we're seeing. So those older batteries now need to either be recycled or repurposed. So we are looking at a project, for example, that has 30,000 batteries in Texas. And so we're actively working to recycle and repurpose that lot of batteries. So a lot going on in the decommissioning BESS space, but I won't go bullet point by bullet point. If you have questions, let me know. I manage a team that does decommissioning. So if it's something you have interest in or your community has interest in, please reach out to me. I'm happy to go over this in more detail.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Gabby. And thank you, Ashley. I mean, for me, it's really exciting, anytime I get to engage with you all and see your presentations and see the growth of the company in just recognizing that there is a real viable business on the back end of the batteries that we use in all of our devices, and particularly for the sake of this call, in our electric vehicles. And we often run into naysayers who use sort of the fear of those end of life battery issues as a way to try and slow down the adoption of electric transportation. And so I hope that folks on the call are sort of having their confidence built that there are folks like Redwood Materials and Redwood Energy out there thinking really strategically about how to get the most out of the batteries, how to repurpose the batteries. I mean, I'm seeing some, data that's looking at the global EV battery stock and beginning to estimate that by the middle of the century, we might have enough recycled content in the pipeline to not have to mine for batteries anymore. Right. So there's some real future opportunity here that could create a transportation system unlike anything that we've had, with both horses that we were never able to recapture their energy in a usable way, and certainly not with internal combustion engines. So it's really exciting. One thing that I wanted to um, just put out there, Ashley and Gabby. So, for the local governments that are on the call right now, do you all have any specific programs or ways in which local governments can team up with you so that as they're electrifying their fleets and their vehicles reach end of life, they can have confidence that those batteries are going to wind up in the hands of somebody who's going to be able to extend that use and help them meet their climate and sustainability goals.
Yeah, we want to we want to support small and big. So if you have maybe 5 buses in your county or city that you're managing, and then you need some work done, and you remove and replace some modules, we'll pick up those modules on a pallet, or the whole EV pack may get replaced. Anything to do with the battery, we have a critical mission to deploy a program. So what we'll do is we'll sit down, we'll talk about what their program needs to look like, what kind of services they need, what kind of packaging do they need. And we walk them through all of that, the 49 CFR to get things over the road. And we do a lot of training at Redwood too, because when you start to electrify, you don't know how any of the rules and the regulations work for storage and packaging and all of that. So that is a huge percentage of what we do. I also deploy to dismantlers. Last year, I think I went to at least 30 different yards, just dismantling yards, mostly on the West Coast, since early EV adoption was on this side, training on how to remove batteries safely, right? And putting together EHS programs with their EHS teams, and just really going over how to do things in a way to make them comfortable to do the work. I think that's the biggest thing is how do we get people comfortable with batteries? How do we not make everybody say the F word, which is fire, right? And be afraid to electrify, because that's really what people are. There's a lot of fear around, how do I manage this? What do I do with it? And there's a lot to do with it. We're not the only people in the market. I think we have the biggest infrastructure domestically, but batteries are valuable. And I think that a lot of people think they're not. And we really want to change that narrative and build programs with anybody who has a battery, and know that they're supported, small or large. So yeah.
And to that point, really quickly, one small plug for our consumer battery collection program. Also, I know this presentation was focused on electric vehicles, but to Gabby's point, as is your electric vehicle battery is valuable, so are the batteries, the smaller batteries in your life, and the battery that's powering your electric toothbrush. So we recently launched our battery bin, which is a state-of-the-art bin and an incredibly safe bin. And we launched that in San Francisco, but looking to deploy it across the country. So if you want to talk about the battery bin, please email us.
Yeah, no, thanks for that plug, Ashley. Sun Alliance for Clean Energy is excited to talk to you about hosting a battery bin in Knoxville at our headquarters there. I
Oh,
think
great.
great. Yeah, really great way to engage the community. I think battery recycling is a really challenging thing for consumers, like even down to our personal batteries, right? I think a lot of folks don't know what to do with their batteries, and
Yep.
probably a lot of them just wind up in the trash can. So I think making sure that folks, even at that personal level, start to understand that batteries have a life beyond their device,
Yep.
and can be recycled and reused, is really going to help people understand what EVs can do, right? And so I think there's a direct connection, and those bins are a really great solution. And yeah, I recommend any local governments that are interested in following through with learning more about that to reach out to Ashley and Gabby on the back end of this call. Are there
Yeah, I
any
think we put our emails in the postscript, and I also link to the website if you want to just do some more research.
Great, thank you. And we have a question from Elaine. Do you talk with companies about clear marketing on their products, like what type of battery the product contains? Have you gotten into that side of it to help educate
Yeah, we've
consumers
had
on
a
this
lot
front?
of discussions with manufacturers on labeling. Power tool segment mostly, I would say, is leading sort of the charge on labeling. I mean, it's a little antiquated. They have a phone number. We've told them probably a website would be better, but have a label, right, that says, you can recycle this. But the labeling is just lithium ion for everything. So that it's just not a good label. So like, I think we should probably put, not only that it's a lithium ion battery chemistry, but the chemistry. would be very useful from an end of life aggregation perspective. So if it's an LFP battery is very different than an LCO battery, than a nickel metal hydride battery. And they actually even have different packaging requirements under 49 CFR. And people don't know because they're like, oh, it's lithium ion. And it's a kind of complex segment that we've lumped under lithium ion, which isn't really a fair shakedown for the people who have to manage these batteries at end of life. So I think there's definitely work to be done in the labeling space. Again, that's going to come from a mandate or a regulation. So Ashley's going to manage that conversation. But if they just put those 3 chemistry letters next to the lithium ion, they would really help a lot of us stop Googling every battery that's ever been manufactured in the world. It would be super helpful.
That's good to know. That's good to know. And Chris, I see your hand up. You're welcome to come off mute and ask your question.
Yeah, just a question. Like if I took this back to our fleet manager and was saying there's this battery recycling opportunity or company, what sort of financial cost is associated with it typically, or what's the exchange?
So typically, Chris, you would tell us what kind of batteries and vehicles you're managing that are in your fleet, and then we could tell you what the value is today of that battery, if it was recycled or if it was reuse. We can give you some numbers to play with. We can also talk about freight and logistics and packaging costs and sort of line out the program holistically for you. But if that battery has value to us, we will give you a rebate and it will have value to you. Other battery chemistries like LFP, which don't have nickel and cobalt, are currently a charge to recycle, but lithium has turned around by 50% in the last 6 months. So that could be a different conversation in another year. The truth is we're attached to the metals market like any recycler. So I like to use auto shredding. When you shred a car, you recover steel, copper, aluminum, right? And all those components have value, which is why they pay you some money for your old vehicle, right? The battery industry is just getting started. And so we're a market, we're attached to the commodities market like every other recycler. And so we go up and down with those cycles. So currently reuse is our strongest value proposition, which is why we're really driving as many batteries and testing and trying to figure out as much as we can reuse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, great. So I'll just make the plug one more time that, I think Chris, that's a great question. And I think, reaching out to Gabby and Ashley and having those conversations, I think can be really helpful. I think also in terms of, again, just an opportunity to continue to educate our internal champions about what can be done with batteries, right? And recognizing that the battery is not going to die with the car. It is going to live on. And I think that's a really important thing that we get across to decision makers and try to break through the misinformation of the harm batteries are going to cause people and the planet, and how that's used to just slow down the transition because it's just not true. As Gabby and Ashley have said, there's just so much value in those batteries. They are going to be reused and they are going to be recycled.
Yeah, my favorite line, I was just at RE Plus in Hawaii, that I said is, if you see somebody who can pick up their 1,200-pound EV battery and throw it in their waste bin, please show me a video. Because it's just not a real problem. Our real problem is our cell phones. Like that's a real problem, right? But I think the EVs and you got to remember, a lot of people don't realize there's this whole underbelly called the dismantler segment. So cars have been sold for parts forever, and so they're going to have an inherent value, whether it's Redwood reuses it or it goes to a dismantler and then they sell the door, the handle, the bumper, the fender, whatever, right? And so vehicles by nature don't just get discarded. They have a secondary market value. So I think it's important to just say like that is an infrastructure. There's 9,000 dismantlers in North America. They buy these cars. They're buying them today. They're selling them for parts, right? So don't forget that those batteries are being sold, if they're a healthy battery to be put back into a car or sent to us for secondary life. So I just want to explain the market dynamics because it's a robust market. It's not just redwood. We need to really understand that there's a lot going on in the space, and they're not just going to be abandoned by the side of the road. That's just not a real narrative.
All right. Well, thanks again, Gabby and Ashley, for your time. Really appreciate you being here and excited to watch your South Carolina facility get up and running, and have you formally here in the Southeast, along with the rest of us. So thanks for the work you're doing and for participating today. And Dory, if you want to take it back to the slideshow, we will keep rolling.
Well, actually, you're up next, Stan, so I'll
I
kick it back
am.
to
I
you.
take the ball back. So following up on our two presentations, we just wanted to give the collaborative a couple of updates. First off, we wanted to let folks know, many of you may be aware that there's been a lawsuit filed against the Trump administration for freezing NEVI funding that was frozen back in February of 2025. About 17 states and a number of nonprofits, including the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, joined that lawsuit, and a ruling came down from the judge last week, ordering the Trump administration to immediately release those NEVI funds to states. So NEVI is ramping back up, which is really exciting. Southern Alliance for Clean Energy had a number of our members in Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida provide testimony in that lawsuit, and that granted us standing, which means that with the decision of the court, that we sort of stand in as a proxy for Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia, whose attorney generals did not join the lawsuit, which enables funding to be flowing to those states as well. So we should be seeing funding. We know that funding is flowing again to the Southeast states, so we should be seeing Southeast Departments of Transportation begin to ramp back up, and reinvigorate the deployment of NEVI, which is really exciting to see. Also wanted to let folks know that those who are tracking the Community Fueling Infrastructure, or CFI lawsuit, that is still pending. So that has not been ruled on yet. And that's the suit looking to argue that the CFI funds were also unlawfully frozen and should be released to award recipients there. So stay tuned for information on CFI, but we can celebrate NEVI, and feel free to reach out to me at SACE if you have any questions about what's happening at the state DOTs where you're at. Secondly, we wanted to make sure folks know that Argonne National Laboratory has released their new GREET tool. And for folks who may be unfamiliar with the GREET tool, it allows you to do life cycle analysis on, a whole bunch of things, including electric vehicles. And this is really important, a really important tool and really important work that the national labs do, because it helps to kind of demythify the notion that electric vehicles are not clean. So, like for example, the latest research out of the laboratories that's built into the GREET tool, shows that over the lifetime, electric vehicle will have a 46% reduction in greenhouse gas emission vehicles with today's grid mix. And the GREET tool forecasts that a decade from now, as more renewables come online, that greenhouse gas emission reduction level will reach about 76%. So the GREET tool is really helpful in making the case that electric transportation is a more sustainable and a more climate conscious way to transition your fleet. So highly recommend that you check out that tool. Again, any questions, just reach out to us. We can help you through it if need be. And then the third update that I wanted to provide is just to let folks know that Alliance for Clean Energy, we publish an electric transportation report every year. We typically publish that report in September, and it captures everything happening in the Southeast market around electric transportation, light, medium, and heavy duty, looking at sales, infrastructure deployment, looking at public funding and utility investment, as well as private sector investment and manufacturing jobs. We will be publishing our year-end update of that report, which will include pages for every state in the Southeast, and that'll be out in March. So stay tuned for that. We'll have lots of good data that will hopefully cut through some of the headlines that we're seeing about, the EV world falling off a cliff. It is not falling off a cliff. There are still a lot of EVs being purchased, and there is a really robust used market that is getting activated. And one of the things that we'll be talking about with this report is how, while we're looking at new EV sales and using that as sort of judgment on the industry, we should really be looking at the total number of EV drivers that are getting in the game. Because as EV owners buy new EVs or their EVs come off lease and they buy another EV, those EVs are used and getting gobbled up really quickly by new consumers getting in the EV space. So we're seeing a lot of growth in the number of EVs in driveways and on the roads, even as the new car market just chills out for a little while it readjusts to the new policy landscape. So we'll dive into more of that in the report, so stay tuned. That's what I've got for updates so far today. If folks don't have any questions, I'll pass it over to you, Dory. If folks do, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Thank you, Stan. All right. Thank you, Reed, for advancing. So the next thing we have coming up is we have the in-person event, actually, that I had mentioned at the top of the call, and I'm going to put the chat the link one more time. So we have our meeting for our Florida folks coming up next week on the 4th in Jacksonville. If you are interested but still have not registered, we could squeeze you in. We'd love to have you there. So that's the link to the Florida meeting. We're excited that in addition to having lots of your peers present, we've also got a representative from the Department of Environmental Protection to talk about the Volkswagen settlement funds. And we also have Rick Hempsey from FDAX, who's going to talk about the new rules around EV infrastructure in Florida. So don't want to miss it. We're really excited to be able to see you guys in person. So then after the February meeting in Florida, we will have a virtual call on March 12th. I don't have the registration link for that just yet. So go ahead and mark your calendar for the March 12th meeting that will be virtually on Thursday, March 12th from 10 to 11:30. And then we are also really excited to announce our last of the in-person meetings, which will be held in Charlotte, North Carolina. So thank you so much to Heather Bolin in Charlotte, who helped secure the location for that. So that will be in conjunction with the EDF Cities Initiative meeting. And that will be on March 24th from 10 to 4. So I do have the registration link for that. So if you are in North Carolina or if you're in Tennessee and you want to make the trip down, we'd love to have you join that last of the in-person meetings. So the registration link is there. There is a travel stipend, just like with the other meetings. So hopefully that can help to ensure that you're able to participate and join us. And if the $150 stipend is not enough, then feel free to reach out to me and we can see if we can work something out, because we definitely want as much participation as we can get for that in-person meeting. So I think those are all of the updates and events coming up that I have. I'm looking to see if there is any other, and I'm going to put also with the registration link for Charlotte in the chat. And also for, yep, so we've got Jacksonville and we've got Charlotte in there. So if you want to click on those links and register right now, we would encourage that. But again, the slides are going to be sent out. So we'll make sure that you guys have access to that. We'll also send around the documents from today's meeting, as well as the directory, so you can reach out to peers if you have any questions. Always feel free to reach out to Stan or myself or the folks at SSDN. And looking in the chat one more time, I'm not seeing any other questions. So I guess we'll go ahead and end here. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to join us today. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of you soon. Thanks, everybody. Take care.